Thanks for listening to the Clive Barker podcast. We hope you've subscribed and rated us. In this episode 197, Jose and I go over the news, including a rare short story popping up again, Clive Barker art on a Netflix show, Hellraiser The Toll audiobook with a surprising cast, and the return of Tortured Souls. We want to thank all the people who have agreed to help us with transcribing interviews. It means a lot to us, and it will help us get our book finished. Hey, and welcome back. This is episode 197 of the Clive Barker podcast. This is my first episode in my new podcast room, and since we've moved. And I finally have a desk. I had the computer set up on a TV tray for a while.
Oh, yeah? So are you still in Fairbanks?
Yeah, just actually only about 10 minutes away from where we lived before.
Okay, all right.
We're selling that house, or we're trying to get it ready to go on the market.
Do you guys have snow already in Fairbanks?
Sort of. It has snowed in a few places, but it hasn't stuck yet. But it's like 31 degrees now, so... And the frost,
oh my gosh.
The frost is staying until until noon or so, so I think it's coming.
That's crazy. Because you're in Fairbanks, which is the coldest place in the United States, and I'm in Arizona, in Phoenix, which is usually one of the warmest places in the United States, and here it is. It's 9 a.m. on Saturday, and it's raining really hard here in Arizona right now. It's kind of like almost monsoon rain. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so it's hard to get up in the morning. It's like, oh, it's fall. It's raining outside. You can hear the rain, and you got to get up and do the podcast. But here I am sipping some coffee. I got a kitty cat here on my desk, and I'm ready to go into the news from the Reef.
Is that Lucy?
Yeah, it's Lucy. She's right here with me.
All right. Well, yeah. I guess first off, we've got Little Hellraisers, and I think Ed and Nina had teased that during our interview episode with them when we were talking about. Okay.
Yes.
So briefly, they had mentioned this when we were talking about Cenobium with them on the podcast.
Sure.
But this is kind of a little slideshow sort of style video with some digital effects added in and narrated. So it's kind of blind friendly that way because it's describing the action. But
sure.
Yeah.
It's called Little Hellraisers, a Papa George and Ducky adventure. Mm-hmm. And if you followed Nina and Ed's YouTube channel, you might have seen previous adventures of Papa George. I'm not super familiar with Ghost, but I hear that this is kind of like a what were you saying earlier? Before
homage to Papa Emeritus, I think. I mean,
yeah.
I'm not an expert on Ghost either. I have some of their CDs, but that's about as far as it goes for me.
Yeah. So but it's really fun. It's you wouldn't imagine that all these creatures exist in the universe, but in this short they do. Like the demon from Legend, a sweet little bunny, Papa George, the Chatterbeast from Hellraiser 4 Bloodline, and a whole bunch of other, little characters.
I think the engineer chases him down the hallway.
Yeah, there's a few little lines that are taken almost directly out of Hellbound. For those who know Hellbound, Hellraiser 2. So it's very, very full of references and stuff. But it's funny. It's Bunny's opened the puzzle box, and it's up to Papa George and Ducky to go rescue him.
Yeah.
So it's basically Papa George and a bath time rubber ducky with black horns, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And like always, if you want to see any of the stuff we talk about, we've got links in the show notes. You can just kind of click those and follow through if you want to see it.
Absolutely. So it's very funny. You get to see places like the Labyrinth. You get to see Frank and Julia. They show up in their respective skinless forms.
Yeah.
So it's a funny little video. You guys should probably watch it and give them some feedback, because that's always fun when you make something that people talk about it. They let you know what they think.
Yeah. And next up, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. So this was a show that I had not even heard of until this story came around. But it's an original Netflix show that hasn't come on the air yet, right? And it's going to feature like 150 Clive Barker paintings.
Yes, I mean I'm not familiar with the show either. Even though I have Netflix, I keep watching the same things over and Jack Horror, stuff like that. But yeah, this is awesome. You can see several pictures in the background of certain scenes in this show, and one of them is the magician, which was the cover for one of the play scripts, if I recall correctly. So yeah, it's great. It's basically, so there was an older show, right? Sabrina the Teenage Witch or something.
Yeah,
and this is like a remake of that.
Is it, or is it related at all, or is it just somebody with the same name? I couldn't figure that out. I went and read the story, but I don't know.
Right. So it seems like one of the set designers for the show actually got interviewed for Gizmodo, Gizmodo's IO9, and he had to say about working with Clive. We spoke about what kind of idea and themes behind that we were going to do, and he said, why don't you come down, spend the weekend, take a look through all the artwork and figure out what you want. So that's what they did, and the set designers went to Clive Barker's studio and got to pick a few canvases, and they used it. So that's cool. That's very, very cool. The show's premise is about a young woman named Sabrina Spellman who must reconcile her dual nature as a half-witch, half-mortal. So apparently now being a witch is genetic. It's not something you learn
right.
from reading books.
Yeah.
While fighting the evil forces that threaten her family, and the light world humans inhabit.
But that's kind of cool. That's like in Lord of the Rings, right? That being a wizard is not an occupation; it's like a race.
Right. So, yeah, like Gandalf is one of the Valar, I think. Anyway, so let's not get too nerdy about that. But yeah, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina will premiere on Netflix in October 26th. So still a little time to go when this episode comes out. That's in about a couple weeks from now. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah.
Maybe if we have time, I know that we've got a lot of stuff to cover before the end of the year, but if we have time, it'd be kind of cool to do an episode about it. Just because it's gonna. I mean, there's been other things that we've talked about that have had Clive Barker art, but this is the first one that's gonna like majorly feature his art. So it might be worth us taking a little time with it.
Sure, and we also did that article when the last Burt Reynolds movie came out, which was called The Last Movie Actor, I think.
Yeah, or the last
that also
movie
had
star, I think, right?
The Last Movie Star, yeah. So that one also had Clive Barker paintings in it, right?
Yeah, and that one is free on Amazon Prime too, and I have it on my list, but I haven't watched it yet.
Right. So yeah, the Greendale Academy, where Sabrina goes to, and keep your eyes peeled for Clive Barker paintings in the background. Yeah,
looking forward to that. And Paul Kane's Dark Mirages. I guess speaking of TV and movies, this is a book that Paul Kane's got with that he's edited, and it's got film and TV scripts and treatments and stuff. And he had told us, I think, that also it's going to include a Hellraiser 5 treatment by Stephen Jones and Michael Marshall Smith called Hellraiser XX End of the World.
That's very, very interesting. I'm very intrigued about that. Yeah, that sounds like something I would, because I remember, this has probably got nothing to do with this. This is just me speculating because I haven't read this yet. But I remember back when they were talking about making Hellraiser 5, I remember hearing from like Leviathan's Lamentations, which used to be this news section on the old Hellbound web, that the Hellraiser 5 would be about a young kid getting in touch with the lament configuration, and then his sister would, be also part of the story, and there were going to be like hundreds of Cenobites in hell, and we were going to see like also angels and stuff. So I don't know whatever happened to that story. It was one of those things that were kind of rumored as being in development.
I wonder if this was that.
So I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. I guess we'll see. End of the World, Hellraiser XX. I guess they were just keeping their options open here.
Yeah, right, because they didn't know like when it was gonna. You know, Hellraiser 5, I mean, I guess for the direct-to-video sequels, it's sort of okay, but for me, it was a huge, a huge disappointment because it's like, you know, after only 4 movies, oh, now they're direct-to-video, which was a big deal back then. That was a real, like, that was a real step down in quality to be direct-to-video, you know, back in, was it 99? I forget. Yeah, and you know, and it's
2000.
like 2000, right? And you say whatever you want about, like, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th, but at least all of their movies were in the theater, and they didn't get, you know, they didn't go straight to, you know, Blockbuster.
Sure. Yeah. I remember watching, I think it was, which one was the 3D one at the end?
Nightmare on Elm Street 6.
I think so.
I saw that one in the theater.
The one where you see like the dream demons coming out of Freddy, and then they like
Freddy's
fly
dead.
towards it. Yeah. It's got a weird Iggy Pop song at the end credits. That is such a weird, horrible song.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So it's interesting to see that, you know, an alternate timeline where maybe Hellraiser would have, you know, continued on, you know, after tripping up a little bit with Hellraiser 4 and all the problems they had, you know, maybe continued on to do theatrical movies. Sure,
yeah. I mean, ever since I started reading unpublished scripts for movies, it's like you open up a window and look into a separate reality where it's like, I wonder what would have happened if this movie had been made. Like that Hellraiser 3 where Pinhead is brought back from pieces of the torture pillar from Hellraiser 2. And then he's got this weird suit that looks more like a bug shell and stuff, and he runs a brothel from hell and a house built by Le Marchands. And all the patrons of the brothel get sent to hell and get eaten by the house. That would have been amazing. I mean, nowadays with the current like special effects that we have, that would have been something like completely out of this world. It would have been crazy. It's a shame that sometimes these scripts get put in the shelf and they're optioned, and then it's like, well, now we own them, but we're never going to produce them. And it's like, you know, that would have been really, really amazing to see. And so I'm looking forward to this one, but I think there's a lot more interesting stuff in this book, right?
Yeah, and there's also Dracula by Stephen Gallagher, The Last Post by Axel Carolyn, Prime Time by Peter Crowther, The Seven by Muriel Gray, and Dead Man's Hand by Stephen Laws. So I'm not really familiar with any of those, but Stephen Jones is the person who's edited some books about Clive Barker, right? Is that the same Stephen Jones? So that would be really cool.
Shadows in Eden, Horrorology, A through Z of Horror. Yeah. So that's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. We'll probably do a bit of a review for this one further down the line, for sure.
And maybe talk about it, and maybe do an episode about it also.
It says here the collection is being released by PS Publishing and is going to come in a standard jacket hardcover edition and also a special signed and numbered edition. They're limited to 100 copies.
Whoa. That sounds expensive.
That sounds expensive. But, it's like you told Paul Kane in a comment when he was announcing something. You said, "When do you sleep?" And it's like Paul Kane is such a prolific author, and it's just amazing to see how many things he puts out at any given time.
Well, and then there was the Hellraiser or the Hellbound Heart audio drama that he put out was also really cool.
Yeah, that one in my book that should replace all the other old-timey like adaptations of Hellbound Heart, even the one that's read by Clive Barker, because this new one is so good. I really, really enjoy that. It had some changes in there, but it kind of worked.
It was really good.
It wasn't just an audio book, it was an audio production, so they're like it's like a little bit of drama production in it, so that was really good. So what's next?
Well, speaking of audiobooks, we can just skip ahead to this one since it gives us a segue. Hellraiser The Toll is going to have an audiobook that'll be actually in a similar vein, kind of more of an audio drama.
That's great, like we were talking about earlier. So, if you saw Hellraiser The Toll, if you remember reading it, we reviewed it a couple of times before it came out and after it came out. We talked about it on the show. And it catches up with Kirsty and leads up to the Scarlet Gospels. And this month, like you said, it's going to be released as an audiobook. And so we knew for some time that Tom Holland's Terror Time and some people who used to work for Clive Barker have been working together. So now it seems like that's kind of bleeding into this. And Tom Holland is playing. It's going to be narrating the book.
Yeah.
And we're going. Yeah, and we're going to have.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like Pete Atkins is going to be in this audiobook as well, right?
Yeah. Yep. And Christian Francis and Casey Lansdale, Robert Parigi, Justin Vondersch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Melly Elfman as Kirsty. Yeah. So that sounds like something else. We really, I'm definitely giving this book a review. And it's coming out sometime in October, right? On which platform?
Audible. Yeah, it's an Audible exclusive. So for people who are members of Audible, yeah, definitely check this out. And it's a short read, so, but it should be a lot of fun. I really like audiobooks where they have a cast.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not just one guy making all the voices, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it always seems a little awkward to me when I listen to an audiobook and it's some guy with a deep set voice and then he has to go falsetto to talk about like the women. And it's like, and then he said, let's go. And she said, okay. And she got into the car. It's like, that's kind of, it's kind of weird. Yeah. Anyway, so that's great. Audible, send us a check.
Yeah, right. Yep. All right. So, and next up we have Todd McFarlane had said in an interview that that Tortured Souls, amongst other toy lines, Tortured Souls is coming back.
Oh, that's very exciting. That's one of the most exciting things we're talking about. Because I'm a big Todd McFarlane fan, and you know the Tortured Souls was pretty big hit when it came out. I remember. Hellraiser was still coming out. Sequels were still coming out. I mean, they're still coming out now, but it was the 90s, right?
Yeah. That was a big deal, and I had always wanted to get. I was more interested in the stories than the toys myself, just because they're a little grotesque, and
sure.
And I didn't think my wife would be really interested in having them standing up on a shelf somewhere.
Yeah. But anyway, so I like the article that Rob wrote for this one. He started with the line that said, "Have you ever been so disturbed by a toy that it actually made you look away? That's what Clive Barker's Tortured Souls figurines did to me when I worked at Suncoast many moons ago."
Oh, wow.
And thanks to McFarlane Toys, they're coming back to torture us again. So that's cool. I mean, I'm not sure exactly if it's going to be the same that are going to be relaunched or if it's going to be more of those, right? I mean...
Yeah, I mean, he said, and he did say in the interview, more Tortured Souls. Right. So hopefully that means that there will be new ones rather than re-releasing the old ones. But even re-releasing the old ones would probably be good. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that didn't get them, and it's kind of hard.
Right. So this was at the New York Comic Con. Tom McFarlane was there, was interviewed by IGN, and then IGN asked him about plans for McFarlane Toys, and he said, "So we're going to go back to our origins, and we're going to go, hey, for all you people who like Tortured Souls, there's going to be more. For all you people who like some of the movie maniacs, there's going to be more. But even the stuff we just created, like Dragons, more. Spawn, more. Twisted Tales, more." So okay. It looks like more Tortured Souls are on the way, whatever that means, if it's going to be the same line, if they're going to expand on the line. Personally, I think it would be really, really awesome if they brought back the old figures and added some more to expand the line. Because these figures are hard to get now and expensive. So it'd be great to have a new printing, so to speak, of Tortured Souls.
And there was a Tortured Souls like version 2 or I forget what you call it.
two series.
Yeah, series 2, right? And those didn't
Yeah.
those didn't have Clive Barker stories with them, which was that part for me was kind of disappointing.
No.
So, but yeah, I hope that if there are more Tortured Souls, that he partners with Clive again to do something with them.
Yeah, like 17 or 18 years later, more Tortured Souls would be coming out. So, yeah, and go check out the article Rob wrote. It's really good. He's got a few extra videos in there as well that you can watch about the series of the Tortured Souls. So, yeah, very, very cool stuff. Really exciting times for Clive Barker collectors.
And if you remember, speaking of Clive Barker collector, if you remember way back, maybe our first or second year, we had talked about rare Clive Barker stories, and one of them was The Departed, which is also known as Hermione and the Moon. We talked about that story. It's rare. It's in Best New Horror Volume 4 and the year's Best Science Fiction and Horror Annual number 6 or something like that. But those are out of print and hard to find. But now all of a sudden there are 2 charity horror story anthologies coming out about the same time that have The Departed in them.
Yeah, that's good. It's always good to have more versions of this story come out, because sometimes those books may be hard to find.
Yeah. So there's one of them is called Ghost Stories for Christmas. And the other one is called Dark Places, Evil Faces, Volume 2. And Dark Places, Evil Faces, Volume 2 is coming out on Halloween. And there you can pre-order it on Kindle, and they say that later on it's going to be a paperback as well. And
I think I remember Rob covered the Dark Places, Evil Faces some time ago, but we didn't have any information on what story it was going to be.
Yeah, that was the problem. We didn't make a blog post about it because we were trying to find out what story it was, and I think on Twitter he had said something like, "Oh, I don't have the table of contents in front of me." Yeah,
right.
So that was kind of the end of it, and then that story kind of came and went, but now he sent me an email saying, "Hey, by the way, our book is going to have Clive Barker's The Departed in it." So I put together a blog post about it.
All right, that's cool. The book is compiled by Mark Lumbee, edited by Lisa T. Tone, and it's got a really scary and cool cover by Tomislav Tikulin. So you can pre-order it on Amazon Kindle or wait for the paperback.
And the Ghost Stories for Christmas book will be out Saturday, December 22nd.
There you go.
And yeah, and they're going to. It looks like it's part of a charity event.
Mm-hmm. That's always good.
Yeah, Thursday the 20th through Saturday the 22nd of December in the Lantern Theater.
I'm a sucker for getting books for Christmas and birthdays and stuff, so I'm sure this would make a great Christmas gift for someone who likes horror. So that's a good idea right there.
Yeah. So looking forward to both of those. So hopefully more people will get to read that story.
Mm-hmm.
And One Way Static Records is releasing the Candyman soundtrack, and so this I've been seeing this on Twitter, and I haven't put together a blog post about it. I wanted to learn a little bit more, because wasn't there already like a clear vinyl sort of a Candyman soundtrack before?
Yeah, there were.
Was it also One Way Static Records, or was it a different?
It was a different one. I remember.
Okay.
On Instagram. I'm actually trying to look for that now.
Okay. Yeah, that's what had me confused. I thought, is this the same? This isn't the same thing, though.
Yeah, it even had like the honey yellow one.
Yeah, and I think
like
this one also has a honey yellow one.
Right. This has a Honeybee Splatter vinyl. Yeah. And it looks so cool. It looks like someone, it's yellow, and then it's got this starburst black explosion pattern on it. It's really, cool. Really amazing. Yeah. And that version, I think, is limited to 200 copies. So Philip Glass, for a long time, we didn't have the complete soundtrack for this. And then there was this kind of incomplete version that was released at the time of the movie. And then there was a second edition that had Candyman 1 and 2 music. And finally they remastered all that stuff, and now we have the original 1992 motion picture soundtrack. Like I said, the yellow black swirl vinyl is limited to 400 copies. There's a solid white vinyl that's limited to 200 copies, exclusive from Zavi in Europe. There's a yellow with black splatter vinyl limited to 200 copies that we mentioned, available exclusively from War God Collectible or Collective in North America, I'm sorry. And there's a clear with yellow smoke vinyl limited to 100 copies, available exclusively from Grey Whale Entertainment in North America. And finally, there's one from Fat Beats that's coming out. That's yellow splatter vinyl, limited to 100 copies. So it seems like they have different outlets for different editions. And that's something I'm not usually accustomed to seeing. I guess I'm not a big vinyl collectible kind of guy, so probably this is something that happens a lot now with these shorter runs of collectible editions.
Yeah,
but it seems like
their website is just a Tumblr blog, and then they have a list of all the different stores where you can buy these.
And all versions come with the art insert that contains exclusive and extensive liner notes by Clive Barker, composer Philip Glass, the director Bernard Rose, and actors Tony Todd, Ted Raimi, and Xander Berkeley. So that's
Ted Raimi. That's funny.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Wow, it seems like this is the year of Candyman, huh?
Yeah, right.
We got the Blu-rays coming out. We got music coming out. It's a good time to be a Clive Barker fan.
Yeah.
When all this stuff that for years didn't really have a lot of attention given to it, now it's finally getting kind of a renaissance.
Didn't Danny message us that the Arrow release in the UK is already, like, the pre-orders are already sold out for Candyman?
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I think so. We'd have to check that.
Yeah. It seems like in the US that doesn't happen with our releases, right? Like, you could still buy the Hellraiser box set.
You can, I think, yes, from Amazon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for some reason that sold out really fast in the UK, but here in the US it's like, yeah, you can just go get it off of a shelf at a store somewhere. Probably
because the audience, the market for that is much smaller in England, I guess, and so I don't know. So yeah, the Herald video published yesterday at 9 a.m. On Facebook, Candyman Limited Edition update. Attention, our Candyman Limited Edition set is now sold out via the Arrow store. If you're still keen to grab a copy, make sure to pre-order via the links below. And then there's still, Amazon, Hearing His Master's Voice, HMV, and Zavi. They're still selling the Candyman Limited Edition, which got sold out at the Arrow store, but you can still get it from Amazon.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay. So it's not sold out completely. It's just sold out at the Arrow store.
Yeah. Usually they have those that say the first 200 or 100 copies will get like an exclusive poster if you order it from the Arrow store. So those are sold out. So now if you want to get it, you have to go to Amazon. Yeah. And if you're in the UK, you go to HMV.
And in the US and North America, we have a was it Scream Factory version?
There is one, I think, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
coming out.
I still need to pre-order that.
I know, it's just been busy, and I'm still kind of crawling my way out of a kind of a weird financial situation. So, we'll get to that.
Yeah, that'll be good. Right, they don't send us free copies of movies.
Yeah. That'd be great, though.
Yes, it would. Okay, and
I saw a funny comic book the other day on Facebook. It was about this guy getting paid he comes out of his job and is like, oh, well, it's Friday, time to get paid. And then you see him holding his wallet saying, oh, I got the money. And then all of a sudden there's a bunch of other guys that are like bullies, but I don't want to use the word bullies, but it's like a bunch of other guys drawn like they're people, but their faces are the Arrow video logo and Vinegar Syndrome and all those like DVD and Blu-ray companies. Yeah. It's like, there he is. He just got his money. Get him. And then they just beat him up and take his wallet. And they're like, thanks, nerd. And they're walking away.
Oh, God. Yeah,
that's kind of how you feel sometimes when you're a collector of like books and DVDs and CDs and vinyls and stuff. It's like, oh no, I got paid. Yeah. Oh boy, I got to pay like my payment plan for like Dark Regions Press, or I got to pay my, Arrow Video is putting out a new like double Blu-ray edition of whatever. Yeah. So anyway,
Yep.
That's
How many
entertainment.
different copies of Hellraiser do we own now?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, feedback. We had a few comments here. Craig Johnson said, "Thank you so much for posting this. The Blind Piper Productions and Ghost Stories for Christmas team." So yeah, no problem.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And David C. Thompson said this was about the Todd McFarlane. He said, "Great, I had to sell my entire McFarlane collection, virtually everything released, when I lost my job a few years ago. This will be my first purchase. I hated letting it all go, but rent and food and life and such." Yeah,
Right.
we
Yeah.
totally understand.
Well, maybe this is your time to rebuild your McFarlane collection. Get
Yeah.
some more little Cenobites. I mean, tortured souls back
Yeah.
into your shelf.
Right. Right, there was a post on one of the Hellraiser Facebook groups where some guy said, "Hey, what's the deal with tortured souls? I just discovered these," and then people were saying, "Yeah, well, unfortunately, it was like 20 years ago, and
Oh,
and there's been no news ever since."
he
I'm
was
like,
asking about the movie. He had found out that Clive Barker was working on a movie for that. And he wanted to know what was the news on that. And it's like,
"Oh,
yeah, there's been no news over like 10 years.
was it about the movie? I thought he was just talking about tortured souls in general."
I think it was about like he heard that Clive Barker was working on a movie. So I think that was it.
Yeah. So anyway, and like, yeah, there's been plenty of news this lately. I mean, he made a book of all the stories in 2015, and and now Todd McFarlane just announced that the toys were coming back.
I honestly don't remember. Have we ever been given any sort of extract from like the Tortured Souls script or anything like that? Because I don't remember reading that yet. I know there was a script.
No, yeah,
No.
I mean only like descriptions of it from interviews and stuff. I don't
Right,
think
that's
that.
it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
something I would like to get a hold of in the future if possible.
yeah,
I'm curious about what that script would have been like.
yeah. Me too.
Anyway, who knows?
And then Mr. said, "I think instead of calling it more, oh, this was like, is there more Hellraiser on the way?" It was one of our blog posts. He said, "I think
Right.
instead of calling it more installments, they should leave the original franchise alone. Living up to the original Hellraiser standards and following Doug Bradley's act might be challenging. I also
Hmm.
enjoyed Judgment, but didn't love it. If it
Right.
would have been branded Judgment a Hellraiser tale, I would have understood better why he had characters that were not as gruesome as Pinhead or Chatterbox." Um,
Sure.
yeah, well, I
I
mean,
think that the auditor was pretty gruesome.
yeah. Well, and also, I mean, just every Hellraiser movie almost since number 4 has been basically a Hellraiser tale. They just don't call it that.
I agree. Yeah. Hmm. Um, well, I mean, I'm kind of torn on this. Like I said, before Judgment came out, I was kind of like done with Hellraiser, and then Judgment came out, and I'm like, hey, you know what? If they just put a little more work, a little more money into it, maybe we could have a really cool Hellraiser movie. So
Yeah.
I don't need it to be like a continuing story of Kirsty and Pinhead played by Doug Bradley. I would just like to see more stuff that expands the mythology. So in that regard, I think Judgment kind of expanded on it a little bit, even though, that's up to you whether or not you want to put that as canon in your mind for like the Hellraiser universe, because it didn't come from Clive Barker's mind or Peter Atkins. But I just, I like horror. I like it. It's a fun thing. For me, it's fun. Halloween is always a fun time when you can it's an excuse to go watch horror movies on your evenings during the October month. And yeah, I like horror. I'm all for more horror. I just don't need it to be the same thing over and over. I would like to see more expansion of the mythology. And I don't even need Pinhead in my Hellraiser movies. You just give me fresh Cenobites that are weird and quirky and threatening and seductive, like
Yeah.
Lucidic from the Tortured Souls. I mean, I wish someone had made a Cenobite like that. It's not by chance that Angelique is one of the most iconic Cenobites from the Hellraiser series.
Yeah, and it's really too bad because it's like somebody somewhere decided that all you need is a puzzle box and Pinhead, and you've got a Hellraiser movie.
Yeah. And you remember when Pyramid Gallery Max Lichter was with us, and we were talking about treatments for Hellraiser that were given to the Weinsteins when they were trying to remake it.
Yes, God.
And my God, they were all terrible. They were all like, "Oh, it's a cult, and they're a secret society," but they tattoo the Le Marchand configuration in their necks or on their face or on their wrist or something. It's like, if you're a secret society, then you don't need to put a big neck tattoo.
Yeah.
To I don't know. It's just weird. It was just a weird thing.
Yeah, I remember cramming Hitler's heart in a toddler.
Yeah, they could bring the Antichrist back. It's like, what the hell does this have anything to do with Hellraiser?
Yeah.
Yeah,
they took a terrible script and said, wait, we could still use this. Just get Pinhead in it.
Just cram Hellraiser into the heart of a script.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
But, I understand that. I would be up for that Judgment Hellraiser tale idea. I mean, like you said, most of these have been Hellraiser tales. They're no longer following what happened to Kirsty with the exception of Hellseeker.
Which is even that is only really marginally loosely based on the Kirsty character. Yeah,
like if you wanted to be one of those Hellraiser purists that tries to put everything in the same continuity, then I would say you probably could watch Hellraiser and then Hellraiser 2 and then probably jump to Hellraiser 6 and then read Hellraiser The Toll and then read Hellraiser the Scarlet Gospels. I mean,
do you think maybe that would Hellraiser The Toll would fit with Hellraiser 6? I guess it's
that's
possible.
A good point.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe.
I mean, I'm okay with thinking that Kirsty is a little damaged from her experience and might have become a little less than a hero. Yeah. She could become kind of an anti-hero. And let's face it, Dean Winters in Hellraiser 6 is kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And he's a horrible husband. He tries to kill her, and then she kills him in return. The whole thing about her killing, like, his lovers, though, it's, I mean, that makes her kind of a villain. But
I hate that in movies when a character loses their memory and they become a good person because they don't know who they are. Like Total Recall. But But then when they figure it out, they decide. I like it better when they figure it out. They decide to become a better person instead of like, oh, I figured it out, but now it's too late. I'm a bad person. I gotta die or whatever.
Yeah. And I would just like to see somewhere in between Hellraiser 6 and Hellraiser The Toll how Kirsty became like this badass secret agent, safe houses around Europe, 20 passports in her bag. Say, I want to know what happened there. That's what I think a more interesting story than her meeting Pinhead in Devil's Island. But that's also fun because it ties it into Scarlet Gospels. So there.
Yeah. And we still want to talk about Hellraiser The Toll. We had we're going to do an episode on it at some point here in the future. I think when the audiobook comes out. And Paul, is that, I don't know if that's Klug or Clog or Clough. I'm sorry, Paul. But he said, "Happy birthday, Ed. Good thoughts your way." So when we did the little Hellraisers post, it was Ed Martinez's birthday. So so that's cool.
Happy birthday, Ed.
Yeah.
Thanks for being in our show.
Yeah. And coming up soon on the site. Well, on the site right now we have episode 196. We talked about the play Hunters in the Snow. If you're not subscribed and you didn't listen to that, maybe give it a listen. Maybe subscribe and listen to some of our older episodes. Maybe don't listen to episode number 1. But
was it bad? I don't remember. Well, I don't think it was bad. It was the year in review.
It was like 2.5 hours, and our sound quality in the first 6 months was not good. We were just getting the feel of podcasts, and we learned how to do it by doing it. So
go to the App Store and get our BarkerCast app, or go to Google Play and get our BarkerCast app there as well. Yeah, they're really useful.
Yeah, and especially if you're not like into podcasts, and you don't subscribe to podcasts, that app is the perfect way to be able to get our episodes and listen to them when they come out. And we do audio of our news stories too, so you can just listen to those while you're driving or whatever.
So it's a fun thing that you're talking about the podcast and podcast experience and subscribing, because that started off with like the podcatchers, right? Like the iPod and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, does Apple even have the iPod anymore? Or have phones kind of replaced everything? I think there was only one iPod Touch, right?
Yeah, I think that's it. I don't think that iPods are a big thing anymore. But yeah, that's funny that the word podcast persists after iPods and stuff are gone.
Yeah.
But it's kind of taken on a larger meaning, you know, and probably people will forget about iPods, but podcasts will stay.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's still just the iPod Touch, because now phones are basically the podcatcher of choice.
Yeah.
People don't want to have to carry a phone and an iPod.
Yeah. And when the iPhone came out, I was like, well, I don't need an iPod anymore. You know, at first I couldn't fit all of this because the iPods had hard drives and the phones only had like flash memory. So they couldn't hold as many songs as an iPod could.
Yeah.
But that's changed. I mean, now they're the same and it doesn't matter.
So next on the Barker Cast, we're gonna have the Dark Ditties people join us for an episode with maybe Simon Bamford. And I'm sure Lori is going to love that episode. Lori from Simon Bamford fans. Hey, shout out to Lori.
I've heard that she likes Simon Bamford.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's true, but that's a rumor.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be discussing Clive Barker, Dark Imaginer with this is a risky name to say because I don't want to.
Yeah, Dr. Sorcha Neeflane.
Yeah.
Please tell us if I know she listens to our podcast, so please tell us how to pronounce it, especially before
I'm so sorry.
You on. We want to get it right when we have you on.
Of course. Yeah. And after that, it's going to be episode 200. So exciting. I have no idea what to do yet, but we're thinking it's going to be more of a community kind of team community kind of geared episode maybe. So we'll figure that out.
Yeah. And one thing about that, if you want to send us a message about episode 200 or, you know, anything about our podcast or about Clive Barker, anything you want to say, send us a voicemail. You can click the little send voicemail tab on the right of the website, www.clivebarkercast.com. Or email us a little MP3 or something like that. We want to kind of put together a bunch of stuff, you know, from you know, things people are saying.
If you're gonna be playing Pinhead in the next Hellraiser movie and Brad Pitt's gonna play you in your own biopic, then don't send us that. Because we get some weird messages sometimes. But anyway, so shout out to even the weird messages that come in our mailbox. It's all good. It's all good. It makes our day more interesting. So, and then after that, maybe we'll get into Mr. B.Gone, which is a book that I would like to revisit. A very quirky book that came out 2008, was it? I forgot.
7. Yeah, I think 2007. And then Coldheart Canyon we'll talk about. I mean, we're going to try to fit all these things in before the end of the year, but some interviews have kind of popped up, and so we'll do our best. I mean, we may not have as many news episodes to try to fit in all these things. Yeah,
so keep your eyes peeled for October. It's going to be a cool month. We may have some cool articles dropping on the blog as well. And, you know, as usual, thanks for listening to us. And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end.
You can find the show notes for this episode and join the discussion over at www.clivebarkercast.com, where we have news, features, reviews, and links to all the ways you can connect with us. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and every other place you can find podcasts. Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial, podcast, and news blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans.
Thanks for listening.